and welcome to this month's Synth Masterclass tutorial with computer music. This month, we're going to be creating a very ubiquitous synth patch, which is both vintage and contemporary in flavour. It can be described as a number of different things, including synth pizzicato or synth stab, but nonetheless the sound itself is the same. It's the perfect sound to use for all sorts of different styles of music, particularly electronic music, where it can be used alongside sequencers and arpeggiators. So grab yourself a copy of our ZebraCM plugin and let's get cracking. We'll begin as we normally do by performing an initialize with our ZebraCM. So go to the window which is at the upper part of the instrument display, click and come down to Init for initialize. When we select this, we completely default the interface. We're also going to move down to the master volume control, which is on the bottom right hand corner of the plugin, and adjust that to the 12 o'clock position. This means that it should read 50 in the upper display, and it's worth mentioning that any time we make any alterations to any of the pots or settings, you should see values appearing in the upper display here, and we'll be referring to this continually as we go through the tutorial. Let's begin creating our sound with oscillator number 1. And in fact, most of the settings in oscillator 1 we're going to leave as they are. We have a sawtooth, which we're going to leave. We have the volume set to 100, which we will also leave. However, we do want to make a slight adjustment to the tuning of the oscillator. Very subtle. We're going to click and hold on the detune button and drag that down to a value of -3. This setting is a measurement of cents, and there are 100 cents to a semitone, so it's a very small adjustment, but enough to make a little bit of a difference to us. Now we can move to oscillator number 2, where we're going to largely mirror the settings. We'll keep a sawtooth by default, but we do need to turn the volume up to a value of 100. This mirrors what we have on oscillator 1. Similarly, with our detune, we're going to adjust it to a value of +3 rather than -3. Now we can move over to the filter section. We're going to use the filter which is described as Low Pass Vintage 2. This has got quite a vintage flavour to it, but it's perfect for this sort of patch. But as with all our patches, you can certainly experiment with the filter types to find one that you might prefer. Having selected this particular low pass filter, we're going to set the cutoff control to a value of 27. And one of the nice features of this particular filter is that it has an overdrive control. We're going to set that to a value of 6. It'll just warm up the sound for us. We're also going to be employing some filter modulation, which is going to allow us to send envelope 2 in the direction of the cutoff pot. To do this, we can use this user-assigned pot, which is already set to envelope 2, and we're going to set that to a value of 112. We should now have a sound like this. Next, we're going to move to the envelope section, and beginning with envelope number 1, which controls the volume or the amplitude of our sound, we're going to make some alterations to the attack, decay, sustain and release pots. At the moment, the sound is quite heavily sustaining, and this is purely because of the sustain pot, which is set to a value of 80 currently. We're going to reduce that to a value of 0. Moving back to the attack and decay faders, we're going to leave the attack pot set to a value of 0, and we're going to adjust the decay pot to a value of 27. This should now give us a very snappy front end. And just to finish off these envelope settings on envelope 1, we're going to change the release pot to a value of 31. The settings that we need for envelope number 2 are quite similar. We're going to leave the attack set to 0, we're going to adjust the decay to 42, we're going to reduce the sustain to a 0 value completely, and adjust the release phase to a value of 30. This now means we have a sound like this. This actually concludes the patch that we want to create, but we're not done just yet. So having created our ZebraCM synth patch, we're now going to create a carbon copy of the same patch and place it on a second track. How you do this rather depends on your DAW, but one easy way of doing it is to merely take the settings that you've created in your ZebraCM, copy them, and then apply them to a second instance of the ZebraCM on your second track. Once you've done that, pan one of the tracks to the left and one of the tracks to the right. Next, take the notes that you've composed and copy them from one track to the other. This now means that you have the notes playing on two simultaneous synthesizers that are identical. This might seem a bit strange, but what we're going to do is then look at the notes themselves. We're looking on the grid editor here, and we're going to either mute or allow to play specific notes. So for example, on track number 1, if we say that we want the first set of notes not to play, we can mute them, and you can see that they're now muted because they're greyed out. On track number 2, for example, we might decide that the set of notes playing chord number 2 and chord number 3 are also going to be muted. If you look at this representation on the arrange page of Logic that we're working in here, you can see the notes playing on track 2 first, followed by the notes on track number 1. This creates this fantastic dancing effect as the sound moves from one side of the stereo image to the other. Very cool indeed. It might take a little bit of time and practice to get the perfect result, but if you look at what we have between bar 5 and 9 on our screen editor here, you can see where the notes have been muted and the notes have been allowed to play. So that's it for this time. We'll see you next month.